Hello everyone. For the tutorial, I want to teach a little bit about Blender. So we're going to be building a procedural mountain range, more or less. So let's get to it. So this is the Blender interface. I don't know how many of you is familiar with it, but it does some things a little bit different than other 3D softwares like Maya and Unity, Unreal. I mean, different in the way that it navigation. So, for example, if you want to rotate around the object, you press the middle mouse button to rotate around. If you want to zoom, you just use the scroll wheel. And if you want to pan, you have to click Control Shift and then the middle mouse button and pan around. That's how you do it. And also in terms of moving the object around, the norm on all other softwares is WER for move, rotation, and scale respectively. But here on Blender is different. So if you want to move an object, you press G on your keyboard. If you want to rotate, you press R on the keyboard, and if you want to scale, you press S. And as you can see, there's no gimbal or gizmo showing around the object, so you can just use the sidebar over here, which shows that. So yeah, so let's get into making the procedural material. So first, let's use metaballs. So metaballs, well, first let's delete this. Just you can press X on your keyboard and then press delete. Now let's add a metaball. So metaballs, so you go to add metaball ball. So metaballs are different than meshes. That they don't really have faces or vertices or anything like that. And they are very interesting because if you duplicate a metaball, this is what happens. It kind of attaches to another one, and you can keep doing that indefinitely, really. And you can also use these to change them around a little bit. You can rotate, do anything that you can with a normal mesh. But that's the difference. So we can go here to the object data properties for the metaball. So we have the resolution viewport and the render viewport resolution. So this is just pretty much the resolution of the metaball. So if we go down here to 0.2, it's better resolution. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the resolution when you render. So if you want to go lower or higher on either one of these two, you can. So if I go higher over here, just becomes more like a square than anything. So, but I'll keep that in 0.2. And influence threshold is pretty much how they influence each other on that attaching to each other thing that I just showed. Let's keep that at 0.6 for now. So we're gonna be using this to build our to show off our material. So first, let's go to shading over here. So we have our shading tab. Let's get our world settings first. So we want to put an HDRI in it, because currently there's no HDRI, and right now we're in the shading viewport. So if we change to this one, we are the render viewport. And if you go up to render properties, this you can see here which render engine we're using, the sampling that we're using on the render or the viewport, and all of the other ones. We're not going to be using Eevee for the render engine. We're going to be using cycles. The reason I want to use cycles is because this procedural mountain material or rock material doesn't really work with Eevee, so you have to use cycles. And if you have a good GPU, you can change this to GPU compute. Might take a little bit, or you may also have to go to under edit, preferences, and under system, you go to optics, and then you check whatever GPU you have. But if you don't, CPU is fine. I'm going to be using GPU just because it's faster and I can use denoiser. And again, if you have a GPU that's capable of that, just go under denoiser, go under viewport, click that, and then click optics. And then it's just going to work a lot faster. So now that we're here, we can see that we're on this boring gray background. So we want to change that. We want to have an HDRI for a background. And HDRI, it's, to put it simply, it's just a 3D, not a 3D, 360 image, but it has light information in it. It's not just any 360 image. Pretty much for you to make an HDRI, you have to take a lot of different photos of in different exposure brackets, and then put all of them together so you can have that lighting information. So you can make that. I've done that in the past, but there is this really good website. Just go on Google and HDRI Haven, and the first one here, and they have free HDRIs. Just go to browser HDRI. I'm gonna choose this one. You can choose any that you like, and up here you choose which resolution you want. I'm gonna be using 2K, and you want HDRI. You don't want EXR, and then you just download, and you don't even need an account or anything. So to put that on Blender, we're here on the shading viewport. Here we change that to world. So we're controlling the world material pretty much, and we have this, yeah, as you can see, we have the background here. You can change that color if you want, but if you're doing something stylistic, I guess this is good. But I want to do something more on the realistic side, so we can go ahead and delete that. Here on the viewport, you click Shift A, then this window is going to show up. You click on search, and then you search for environment texture. So once you have that environment texture up, you click open, and then you have to go to wherever folder it is that you saved that HDRI image that we just downloaded. So I'll go under downloads. That's where mine is, and it's right here, Air Museum Playground. I double click. It's already in here, so now I just connect the color to surface, and it shows up. And you can see that the lighting is a lot better and a lot more realistic than it was before. Okay, so now let's go back to the object here. Let's click our meta ball. So you want to click on the whole thing. You don't want to have just one of these rings selected. You want to have the whole thing selected. You can just go up here and click on the first meta ball that you created. So it doesn't have any material. So if you go here to the material properties tab, there's no material at all. We want to create one, so we just click on new. Then let's rename that to something like rock, so we have proper names. So here we have our material properties, and yeah, you can change the color. I'm gonna leave that white for now. You can change the specular, subsurface scattering, roughness. I'm not gonna go too much into what all of these does. You can play around if you want. It's pretty cool. You can get just with this, but that's not what we're gonna be doing. So first, we want to create a mountain, kind of a mountain range that has two materials in it. We want to have some grass and some rocks in it, something that appears to be rocks and something that appears to be grass. And first let's create the grass texture, and this is how we do it. So first let's create a Musgrave texture. So again, we go Shift A, search, and then search for Musgrave texture. We change that to rigid multifractal. That's because it's gonna give more of a mountainy look to it. Then again, you go Shift A, search, and we're gonna look for a color ramp. We're gonna get the height node over here and put it into fractal. Then we're going to put this straight into the color. So right now you can see that we have something very trippy, very weird. Doesn't really look like anything, really. Doesn't really look like grass, which it is what we're gonna do. So to do that, let's select this first little node over here. Click over here to select the color, and let's select something that's green. I'm gonna go kind of like that. Yeah, a little bit like that. Then let's select the other one. Let's make another green, but maybe lighter than the lighter. Let's say lighter. Then the other one, let's bring this one down so we can see the because you can, as you can see, you can control like how separated they are by doing this. So I wanted them to be kind of separated, so I feel like this is good enough. Let's also put a bump map to it. So for that, let's just and now you can also go into here onto the Musgrave texture and just play around with it to see what looks best for you. I mean, right now it doesn't really look like grass, but trust me, we're gonna get there. But yeah, just play around. I like to put the detail maximum, which is 16. The dimension, you can put it down a little bit. This one you can leave it like that. Offset, I like to leave that at 0 really for this. Gain, you can bump this up, because it just looks better if you bump it up a little. So yeah, this is what we have right now. I'm gonna change this one a little bit, actually, something more like that. And this one I'm gonna make it darker. Yeah, now this looks better. So yeah, now let's add a normal map to it, a bump map to be precisely. So click on your Musgrave over here, click on Shift D, you're gonna duplicate it, and then you can just drag it down there. So now we want to do Shift A again, Shift A. Let's look for bump. Now we're gonna get the height, put it on the height, and then on the normal, we put it on the normal. And you can see we already have some bump into it, and it's looking more like grass right now. Not entirely, but it is looking better right now. So again, you can play around with the settings over here. I'm gonna leave it as this, but play around as you wish. So that's all for our grass texture for now. Now let's click on our material over here on the principal BSDF. Let's do again Shift D, and then just drag that down to make our now we're gonna want to make our rock or dirt material. So again, we want to have a color ramp. So Shift A, color ramp, and just put it in there. And let's connect the BSDF output onto the surface of the material output, because right now the surface is this one, so it's only showing that. We want to show this one, so let's just connect it there, and there we have it. So right now, as you can see, it's just white. It doesn't look like rock. Again, let's change this to something more brown-ish. Yeah, something more like light brown, something like that. Let's change the other one to brown, but darker, a lot darker. So something like that is good. Let's bring this down a bit, and let's get a Musgrave texture in here. So just click on that one, Shift D, and then just bring it down, and there you have it. So there we have it for our material for now. We are going to be changing that later on, but for now it's good. You can also play around with this. I feel like this will be better than before. So let's also add the same thing that we did over here. So bump and a Musgrave, select both of them like that by clicking and dragging, Shift D. So you have both of them selected, and then just put it in the normal. And there, you have something that looks more or less like dirt, like rocks. So now what we want to do is mix the two material. The way you do that is by using a mix material. So you go Shift A, you search for mix shader, and that's what you use. So you put one over here and the other one over there on the shader, on the shader inputs of the mix shader, and then the output you put it over here. So as you can see, we have something now that kind of looks like a muddy, grassy texture. But what we want is we want the top here to be more like grass, and we want the bottom to be more like the dirt. So that's what we want to do. So to do that, we're gonna use the fractal over here on this. So as you can see, that's what you control between the two materials. Also, you want to put the roughness all the way up on these, because they're pretty rough. Okay, so now to have we want to have the top over here to be grass and the bottom over here to be the dirt. And the way we do that is by using texture coordinate. So we go over here, press Shift A, search texture coordinate. So that one, select that one. So we have that. We want to use the normal texture coordinates of the object. So it pretty much gets the normal of each vertex in the object. So press Shift A. Let's search for separate X, Y, and Z. So this is going to intake the normal vector, and it's separating into the X, Y, and Z components. After that, we want to multiply. So Shift A, let's search for math. So once we have math, we take the Z, put it into value, change this to multiply. After that, select your multiply node over here and press Shift D to duplicate. So get the value, put it in the value over here, and then let's add. Now we want to add a color ramp. So Shift A again, color ramp, and let's get the value and put it into the factor over here. So this pretty much is clamping the value between those, pretty much between 0 to 1. So you get the color output over here on the, over here from the color ramp. you get the color and you input here into this node right here. So you just grab the color and put it in there, and as you can see we have something, but it's the opposite of what we want. So let's just go down here and change this to, so put that one on down, that one up. So there we go, we have exactly what we wanted. You can also play around with these values here to see what you want. I'm gonna leave that at 3.1. feel like something like this. So yeah, just play around with the values to see, so you can get what you pretty much want from it. So now we want to have the displacement. We want to add more of a mountainy look to it, more of a rigid edges and things like that, kind of like how mountains work. So for that we're going to need the displacement right over here. So for that, first you need to with your object selected over here, you go under material properties over here, and you go down, and under settings on the surface you want to change the displacement from bump only to displacement and bump, so that the displacement node over here also actually works. If you don't change that, it's not going to work, nothing's going to change at all. So to start that, we're going to use another texture coordinate. So Shift A, texture coordinate over there, and now we're gonna want to use the generated. So I'm gonna show you guys. So Shift A, let's search for a mapping node. So we want to use the generated over here, and the reason we want to use the generated is because since this is a meta ball, it doesn't have UVs actually, so you want to use a generated UV that Blender does it for you. If your object has UVs, you want to use UV over here because it's going to give you a better result. But since this doesn't, it's better if you just use generated for that. So after that, we add another Musgrave texture. So Musgrave over here, take the vector onto the vector again like the other one, change to ridged multifractal, and there you have it. After that we want to add another color ramp. Shift A, color ramp over here, so the height onto there. Now another Shift A, and we want to search for the displacement node. So this is just so we can get whatever it is that we're outputting here to here. If we just put it directly, it's not really going to look that great. And also we can kind of control some of the outputs over here with the height and mid-level, which is going to give us a pretty good look. So you go here to displacement, put it in, and as you can see, things are already changing. So we can change it over here on the height. You can change a little bit on the mid-level too, and as you can see, it is looking more like mountainy right now, but not really the way that we want. I mean, if you want it like this, that's great, but I want to go a little bit further than that. So to do that, we have to play around with a lot of other values over here. We can go onto the scale over here, bring it up to about 19. The detail, we can also bring it up. If you want the dimension, you can bring it down a little. All of these values, I already played around with it before, so I already know kind of more or less what's going to give the best result for this. So you can just play around with all of these values. So just not to waste time, I'm already putting the ones that I found the best. For the luminarity, I had 1.03. Offset, you do want to put a little bit of that. It's looking a little bit crazy right now, but trust me, it's gonna look better. The gain you want to put all the way up, all the way up. Yeah, as you can see now, it's looking very weird. So let's bring it down the height and bring down the mid-level too, so it looks more like a mountain. And another really important value that you can play around with is the scale over here on the mapping. Like I said, we're getting degenerated. So if we bring it down, if we bring it down the x value, for example, let's put it to negative 0.6. This one, let's bring it down to 0.5. And this one, let's bring it way down to 0.17. So as you can see, we have something now that looks more like a mountain. So let's just negative 0.610. This one 0.560. And yeah, the rest here is looking good. So let's bring this down to 0.5. As you can see, you have something that looks more like a mountain right now. A little bit ragged, a little bit too crazy. But remember, this is supposed to be for looking from a distance. You do not want this to be like front and center of your scene, because it's not gonna look good. But for a mountain in the distance, for example, or a pebble on the ground, this is gonna look great. So to add more of a variation to it, let's select both the color ramp and the Musgrave. Shift D. Let's bring it down. Let's get the vector over here, put it on the vector over there. And let's make some room over here, and now we have to mix these two color ramps. To do that, you just Shift A, and we use a mix RGB node. So right here, you put on that over there, that over here, and then the color you put on the scale. So right now we don't see anything different because it's the same values for both. So we want to change that a little bit. Let's just bring this on the negative side, for example. So let's say negative 27. Let's bring this one up a little. Let's bring this one down a little. Let's say 0.9. Let's bring this one to the negative side too, and the rest can stay the same. So as you can see, now we have something that resembles more a mountain range, especially from afar like this. It's looking pretty good, and it's a pretty easy way to do this background thing, so you don't have to spend a lot of time doing background mountains and things like that, for example. So as you can see, it's looking good. And the good thing about using metal balls is that you can select one and then Shift D, and you can just keep on building your mountain or whatever it is that you want to build, like that, and make it look whichever way that you want. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can put some more textures to it. Right now I used everything that's on Blender, didn't use any outside textures, but you can if you want. So yeah, I hope you guys got something out of it, and thank you for watching.